Thank you, Cheryl. That was by far the best introduction I've ever wrote. Right now, my book coach, as she mentioned, suggested that I would come up with jokes to help warm up the audience before I actually begin my speech. However, I've been so much working on my speech, I forgot to put any jokes at the beginning. But one thing I will mention is the fact that, yes, I took 2.5 years in writing my book, and then finally hired a coach who gave me a lot of great insights in what it takes to write a book. For instance, hiring an editor. For when I first got my book back from the editor, it looks like English is actually my first language. I put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears in this, and been working on this speech for a while, so hope you enjoy it. Is that the coffee machine? Yeah, I guess the coffee machine's ready. Steak, ice cream, beer, the 3 food groups. Today is my 26th birthday, and I'm spending it like the many birthdays before, alone, eating some of my favorite foods. But this birthday is different. As I look towards my life, I am closer to 30 than I am 20. The math makes sense when you're in your mid-20s. And I do not like where my life is going. I am trapped in this prison of fear that I just can't get out of. I don't have a job that I enjoy. I don't feel close to any of my friends or my family. And I'm not even close to even having a girlfriend. So I make the decision that I am going to change my life forever. And I pick up any book I can to make me a more happy and more joyful person. As I studied and studied, I learned ways to make me go from a person stuck in a prison to out of my prison and being a more happy, more joyful person. The person that you see here before you. Before I would turn 26, there's no chance in heck I would be out here in front of you. I'd be more afraid to stand in front of a lot of people, even though I know most of you and you're all awesome. Who here would like to hear how I transformed my life? Who here would like to hear how to become sad to becoming more happy and more joyful? All right, let's get this party started. I am going to tell you the main points that I've learned on my path. I'm also going to describe to you how you can also utilize your own personal genius to create the life you want to live. And I'm all going to do it in the context of a relationship I've had. Who in here has ever had a relationship? Exactly. You, like me, has had a relationship. And the reason why I choose a relationship is because most times when I see an awesome, amazing, motivational speaker, I am pumped. But at the same time, I am not an orphan. I have never been poor in another country. I've been American poor, where I've always had clothes and food and HBO. And I have all my limbs or no debilitating diseases. While they're very inspirational and very amazing speakers, at the same time, it's not as easy to relate with what they're saying. And being part of a relationship is something we all can relate to. There I was, sitting down, and just looking at the smile at her face and just radiating love. And I knew at that moment I was going to fall in love with this girl. It all started at work when I received an email. Do you want to be an infinite possibilities trainer? Infinite Possibilities is a course taught by Mike Dooley, who you may have saw from The Secret. And he was giving a course in Seattle, well, Tequila, and I was the type of person who wanted to do workshops. And I thought to myself, do I want to learn how to do workshops from Mike Dooley? So I asked my inner being, my intuition. Because when you listen to your intuition, miracles happen. And the way to ask your inner being is a way called muscle testing. where you can do this with a friend, you put your arm out and you ask a question. And if it's yes, you're strong, and if it's a no, you're weak, and the arm is easier to push down. There are other ways to test yourself, and the way I test myself is when I hear a yes, I move forward, and when I hear a no, I move backward. And then when I ask myself, did I want to be an infinite possibilities trainer, I went yes so fast that I almost knocked the computer down. And that's when I heard a voice. You are going to meet your fairy there. I got excited. Because this is only the second time in my life where I actually heard an actual voice. Generally, when I listen to my intuition, it's a feeling or an idea that just pops out of nowhere, but a voice, an actual voice. The first time I heard a voice was about 2 years after my 26th birthday. I was trying to put myself out there, so I decided to go to a BBW party. And for the people who don't know, BBW means Big, Beautiful Women. Because just like Sir Mix-a-Lot, we both like it when baby got back. And at this party, I generally, when I hang out with, at this time, I would either be a wallflower or go to a bar and watch hours and hours of sports highlights. Or I'd go with really close friends and kind of glam onto them and use them as a social crutch. But this time I was stepping out there. And I was going to go there on my own with these people that I kind of knew. Not enough to know as a crutch. So I show up at this Mexican restaurant with the aroma of tacos, booze, and body odor. The trifecta of a party. Got my drink, talking, dancing. Leave now. Okay. That was weird. That's the first time I actually heard a voice in my head. And I thought, well, yes, I'm kind of uncomfortable. I know my ex-girlfriend's here, but it's fine. We're doing fine. I'm okay. So I try to go back, hang out, dancing. Leave now. Okay, boys. It's okay. I'm fine. Dancing, having a good time. Leave now. Nag, 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 nag. Fine. I will listen. I'll actually leave this party. So I give these people an excuse, probably something to do with football and having to wake up this morning, which was probably true. And as I was leaving the party, I heard a ruckus behind me. The people I was with got into this huge fight. A fight that I would have been in the middle of if I did not leave when I left with that voice. Because when you listen to your intuition, miracles happen. And at that moment, the miracle happened is that I didn't get punched in the face. And honestly speaking, any day where I don't get punched in the face is a victory. But that day, I knew for a fact that listening to your intuition is real, and there's something out there that can help you in your life. And when I hear this voice that I meet my fairy, I was excited because the fairy is what I described to myself as the next girlfriend I was going to have. A small, cute, spiritual woman. So cute and adorable. So I show up at this Infinite Possibilities seminar this cold January morning. And fellas, if you want to meet women, go to a personal development seminar. It's like 80% women, 20% men. And I knew for a fact there's this huge chance that I could actually meet someone there. So I'm there, meeting all these awesome people, listening to Mike Dooley and his brother Andy Dooley, who happened to write the foreword for my book, give these awesome speeches, and I was buzzing with excitement. And that's when I got a buzz on my phone. I see you're in the area. Well, OkCupid has an app. And the app used to tell people when you're in the area, and you might be interested in this person. And this person messaged me because I was in the area. And she was listening to her intuition. So I thought to myself, man, maybe a miracle can happen. I want this mystery woman that's going to be my fairy. But not to put all my eggs in one basket, I continue on the seminar. But unfortunately, by the end, it turned out either the women were too young, too married, or from New Jersey. So I decided to give this mystery woman a chance. At this time, I was gone a Whole30 diet, where I was giving up dairy, sugar, legumes, grains, my will to live. And the only place I could think of eating was at the mall, because it was right next to it, and also women like the mall. And we sat down next to this delicious smelling Japanese crepe stand. And it was adorable. I asked her if she was nervous. She would say no and just look away nervously. And she asked me if I was nervous. I would say no and look away at that delicious looking Japanese crepe stand. And then she said the 3 words that made me know that this date, there was going to be a second date. I love the movie Face Off. And the second time I met her, I could see her sitting there smiling at me and just feeling the love radiating towards me. And I knew at that moment, I decided I'm gonna fall in love with this girl. And the relationship was really awesome. I had never loved, I had never trusted more in any relationship, never had more fun. And get this, in summer camp, her nickname was Tinkerbell. It was fate. I met my fairy, I listened to my intuition, and the miracle happened. Who here knows who Alfred Lord Tennyson is? All right, you probably have heard of this saying. Say it with me. It is better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all. I bet some of you thought that was Shakespeare. I did until I Googled it. So I'm at work again, texting my girlfriend that I did about 5 months into our relationship, where I received this text that said, I need to work on this alone. I really didn't know how to handle it at that moment, but I knew I wanted to handle it deliberately. And what deliberate means is being intentional and conscious. I didn't want to be triggered, so I tried to keep myself calm all day. I was thinking, okay, well, I'll go home, I'll call her, and we'll have an adult conversation. And things were fine on the bus, and I got in my car, and then, bam, I was emotionally triggered. An emotional trigger is all like a physical trigger. Who here heard of fight or flight? Fight or flight happens is when your unconscious mind takes over for your conscious mind so you can get away from a danger. For instance, you are walking in the forest and you see a bear. Your first instinct, that's when the fight or flight instinct kicks in, and you either flight from the bear or you fight the bear because you're Batman. And you want it to be unconscious because if your conscious mind took over, it would be, hey, what is that animal? I think it's a bear. What should I do? I think I should run away. Which direction should I run? And by the time you make your decision, you're barefoot. Emotional triggers are very similar. When you're young, from probably around the ages 2 to 8, your relationship with older people, especially your parents, isn't really important to you. So you kind of develop these automatic emotional responses to help protect them so they don't kick you out to instant death. And I was emotionally triggered at this time due to an old emotional trigger of abandonment. And it hit as I was driving home. And I was just thinking to myself, how could she do this to me back in the day? You used to have to take people to a nice restaurant to break up with them. Now you can just send it to a text. Thanks, Obama. I created this idea in my head that the love of my life left me. And if she doesn't immediately apologize to me by the next day, everything's over. I'll never talk to her or see her again. And she didn't. So I made it official and put it on Unrelationship Us on Facebook. Wrote a nice haiku. I thought I'd find my fairy. And then I received a text. My heart is broken. And actually it was lucky for me that a friend of mine messaged me and started talking to me that she actually used the word breakup. And what it did, it kind of got me out of my head for a second. and made me think, is this how I want to react? Am I acting deliberately, or am I triggered? And notice I was triggered. And some of you might be thinking that you are completely justified in your reaction to how she treated you. She sent a message over text, and there was a time I would believe you, I would be right with you. However, when you take responsibility for your life, you have responsibility. Who here has blamed someone else for the problems in their lives? Who here has thought to themselves, if this person only wouldn't have done blank, then I would be blank. See, when somebody is responsible for your problem, they're also responsible for your solution. And I used to have someone responsible for my problem. See, growing up, I was a mama's boy. Go ahead and laugh. I was born to a 15-year-old girl who was part of an abusive household. And when I was born, I became her world. And she became my world until the age of 8, when my mother abandoned me. And when my mother abandoned me, I was destroyed. I lost all faith in people. I ate copious amounts of food to fill the hole in my heart. I would just watch hours of television to escape my reality. I would feel alone, even if I was surrounded by friends and family. I was drinking the poison of blame, because there's an old saying, to blame someone else for your problems, to not forgive, is to like to drink poison and expect the other person to get sick. And I was drinking that poison because it was all my mom's fault. Because of her, I never felt close to my family. Because of her, I never had a girlfriend. Because of her, I never got to do the things that you do with a girlfriend. You know what I'm saying?
No.
How could she do this to me? She left me a wound on my heart that will never heal. And anytime I would try to put myself out there, I could feel a pulse as a reminder to shrink away. And if it wasn't for one special movie, I would still be eating buckets of KFC, watching hours of Saved by the Bell, and thinking women are more complicated than an orangutan with a Rubik's Cube. Who here has had a movie that changed their lives? It gave them a new idea. An inspiration movie like Rocky, or name one.
Shawshank.
Shawshank Redemption.
The Running Man.
Running Man for some people. The movie that changed my life forever was Kingpin by the Farrelly Brothers. And for the people who don't know, Kingpin is a movie about a bowler who lost his hand because of an older bowler kind of tricked him. And to get back at him, he was going to teach an Amish guy who was trying to save the family farm to win the great $500,000 Las Vegas bowling tournament. I know what you're thinking. Life-changing. Kingpin is a raunchy comedy. A comedy so raunchy and so dirty, I couldn't find one joke to share in such a pure place such as a church. And Kingpin was the last thing I would ever thought to change my life, and it didn't the first time I watched it. It wasn't until I was talking about how funny the movie was with my friend Nathan, when he went all Tony Robbins, Wayne Dyer on me, and said, the thing I like about the movie is at the beginning, he blamed the older bowler for all his problems. At the end, he took responsibility for himself. What? That is like trying to learn a lesson from The Hangover, other than don't accidentally roofie your friends. He was wrong. And I'm a man, and I'm right, so I'm going to prove him wrong. And I watched the movie a second time. And at the end of the movie, it was right there, staring me in the face. And I thought to myself, where else in my life Am I missing responsibility? Wow. As I went over my life, it turned out I was a blaming machine. I blamed my mother, my father, my sister, my cousins, my teachers, politicians, even those freaking birds in my roof. And as I looked over each one, I noticed that I am responsible for everything I blame them for. I can take responsibility for it. Not only I am not responsible for what they did, but I'm responsible for how I react. And I can decide what things mean to me. This wound on my heart that will never heal, now when it pulses, it's a reminder to be more, to love more. I can use my pain to make me better, not bitter. And I forgave my mother. I mean, she was a 23-year-old girl at the time. Who here hasn't made a really stupid decision at the age of 23? Of course, Tasha. I know some of you are thinking, just look at the stupid decisions you're going to make now, Sonny boy. I think all old people say Sonny. I stopped drinking the poison of blaming people for my problems, and I was able to move forward. I mean, think in your life, who do you blame for your problems? Think how you can take responsibility for your actions. Because when you are responsible for the problem, you're responsible for the solution. And I knew then that I was responsible for my feelings toward my fairy. And I finally decided to take a walk. After about 18 days of torturing myself and thinking about all the times we've lost and all the times in the future we're going to lose, I finally took a walk at Green Lake, which is a beautiful area to take a walk in the middle of Seattle, nice, pristine. And as I was walking, I get this memory in my head. You see, my grandma was staying with my aunt Cindy in Auburn, and I lived in Bellevue, and her husband, due to complications of old age, was living in Snohomish. And sometimes I would drive from Bellevue to Auburn to Snohomish back to, it's about a 2-hour trip for the people who don't know. And I was driving my grandma up, and she was complaining to me about how Jim is fine, her husband is fine, how the doctors don't really know what they're talking about. And I guess I got this idea to ask my grandma, well, Grandma, why don't you let go? To which she replied, I cannot go, I love him! Okay. That ended that conversation. But that reminded me of another thing, so yes, this is a flashback and a flashback and a flashback, to when I was reading the Course in Miracles. And the Course in Miracles states that there are two main emotional feelings. Feeling of love or the feeling of fear. And you can't do both at the same time. You're either loving or you're fearing. And it's hard to ask myself, how am I treating my fairy? Am I loving her? Am I fearing her? And finally, being deliberate, using my intuition, and taking responsibility, I actually got to a point where we can sit together and have an adult conversation. Probably the first adult conversation in my life. And it turns out that the relationship wasn't working. And decided to go our separate ways, which was fine. I didn't regret anything, because when you speak from the heart, there are no regrets. And that day I spoke from my heart. And that time, loving her was letting her go. You know what's funny? When I first got into personal development, I thought that I would go to these workshops and all of a sudden all my problems would be solved and nothing bad would ever happen to me again. It wasn't until I was going to this workshop, and the end of workshops are by far the best part. because everyone is hooting and hollering, having a great time, hugging, talking about all the ways they're going to change their lives forever, and it feels so good. In fact, if there was a drug that didn't make me want to lick the wall to take, for me to have that feeling, I would take it all the time. But this one guy came up to me, and there's something off about him. I asked him, what's going on? And he said, well, I've been going to these seminars and this work, and 2 weeks ago, my wife divorced me. And I thought to myself, how is that possible? You've done all this work! And he told me that in life, things happen. But the beauty of personal development is not solving all your life's problems. It's when life's problems happen, you get back up and you go forward. In fact, the teacher of that seminar, Satyen Raja, taught that an inspired master who spends his entire life up in a monastery meditating on love can still be knocked off his enlightenment path, but it takes him 8 seconds to get back. It took me 18 years to get back after the incident with my mom. It took me 18 days to get back after my relationship with the fairy. That's a huge improvement. And that's what it is. There's no smoking gun. There's no this thing that's going to change your life forever and there'll be no problems. Bad things are going to happen. People you love are going to die. I know, inspirational. The truth of the matter is, if you keep on doing this work, if you keep on working on yourself and becoming more happy, you can deal with them better and come back and be more loving, be more kind, just like I was. When I was able to get over heartbreak, about 18 days, 21 days. Who here would like to know how exactly I did it? The steps. Abracadabra. Hocus pocus. Anepneo. Valvatoris. Shazam. Bibbidi boppidi boo. Thundercats, Thundercats, Thundercats. Ho! Everyone's favorite, please. My friends, words are magical. That is why they call it spelling. And some of you will get that tomorrow. The words you use affect people in your life. I heard the story about this baseball player who would go around talking to prisons. Craig Biggio, one of the prisoners asked him, "Hey, Mr. Biggio, how did you become a Major League Baseball player?" And Biggio looked back, "Son, every day when I was practicing with my dad, he said, if you keep that up, you'll be a Major League Baseball player someday." The prisoner thought to himself and said, "You know, my dad said the same thing to me about prison." The words you use affect people. You either cast good spells or negative spells, which is why they call them curse words. Eh? And I can read your mind. And you've said some terrible things to yourself. Because there's no more important words than the words that you spoke to yourself. And imagine you're in a room with your best friend, and this random person is just reading your mind of the terrible things you've said to yourself and say them to your best friend. Chances are that guy is not leaving that room alive. Why would you say such terrible things to yourself that you wouldn't even say to your best friend? You spend way more time with yourself than you do with anyone else. You can be your own worst enemy. Well, I should know. I used to be my own worst enemy. I used to say terrible, terrible things to you. You're not good enough. You're not good looking enough. No one really likes you. And then, as I turned 26 and tried to change my life, I was picking up this book called You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, who mentioned that, told me that you could talk to yourself in a mirror and change your life, which, of course, talk to yourself, isn't that kind of weird? And she said, well, you're talking to yourself right now. Well, touche, book. And I decided that I was going to use the most powerful word in the English language that changed my life. Love. Love is part of all of our lives. It's in most literature, poetry, movies. Even the most die-hard action film, like Die Hard, has love underpinning in it. And I would wake up every morning, look in the mirror and say, I love you. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I love you. No, you don't. Ouch. When you first try to change your negative self-talk, it takes time. You gotta just keep on going. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I love you. Soon you'll get to the point of being uncomfortable. And when I became uncomfortable, that's when I decided to kick it up a notch because I was excited. No matter where I saw a mirror, I was going to say out loud, I love you. Well, not in the men's room. Mirror, mirror on the wall, I love you. Yes, you do. Imagine the feeling of being able to look yourself in the mirror and saying, I love you, because the greatest love of all is easy to achieve. I'll say it, sorry. But as Whitney Houston said, learning to love yourself is the greatest love of all. I mean, imagine your life where you're talking nicer to yourself and truly loving yourself, where you could be 5, 10 years from now. Imagine your friends and family, if you have children, teaching them the power of positive self-talk, the ability to use the power of words to take their lives from drab to rag. Because thank you, I love you, way to go, I am proud of you. Yes, words are magical. So go out and cast powerful, positive spells on you and the people around you. And write them down. That's the next step. You want to write them down in a form of an intention. A way to focus your life onto what you want. When I'm working with my clients, this is generally my first phone call. Well, what do you want? Yeah, well, what do you want? What do you want? Because most people look at what they don't want in their lives. And you want to, because if you focus on what you don't want, you'll end up getting what you don't want. Because where your focus goes, your energy flows. What you focus on expands. And that's the first step in the joyous expansion system is intention. And the next step is action. Because when you write down your intentions, especially a way to get your emotions behind it, you'll get these ideas. And you want to do them either now, or you want to write them down, so you can do them later. Turn them into a project. Like one of my intentions is to write a book. And here I am. And finally, what happens after any action? There's an outcome. There's two things you do with an outcome. The first thing you do is that you learn. I remember one day when I was sitting down with a beer, and I was asking myself, how do I not feel that pain again? Because pretty much human beings' motivations are very simple. You either move towards pleasure or away from pain. And I did not want to feel the pain of a broken heart again, so I went back into my mind to all the books I've read and seminars I went to, and asked myself, how do I not feel that pain again? And the answer surprised me. To love more and to trust more. Which is weird because I trusted more in this relationship. In fact, I kind of trusted her not to do the things she ended up doing. But then it reminded me of this story I heard from James Arthur Ray, who mentioned that it was about this woman in the hospice that had 6 weeks to live. And this isn't one of those hospice stories where the power of positive thinking, she was able to live 100 days longer or years. No, she was dead in 6 weeks. But the thing about hospice workers found so different about this lady was, she was so happy. And one of them finally asked him, why are you so happy? You're going to die in 6 weeks, was she? Not the best hospice worker. But the answer was, if I am going to die, I'm going to die once. And that's what a saying that I've heard over and over in life finally took in. A coward dies 1,000 deaths. Because every time you imagine a bad thing happens, you feel it. Because your brain is intensely intelligent, but is not very wise. And every time you imagine something bad happening to you, you actually go through the same emotions. The same chemicals are released that happen when you actually experience it. So when you imagine you dying, you kind of go through the emotions and fears of dying. When you are in a relationship and you imagine yourself breaking up with someone, you go through the emotions of breaking up, which is why there's that stereotype of the woman who screams at her man when she wakes up because in her dream that cheated on her, because she actually went through the emotions of being cheated on. And I wanted to live in a way of love. Because when you write down intentions, there's pretty much two types of intentions. There are intentions for things you want in your life, a new car, lots of money, an awesome book. But also the most important intentions are also of who you are and how you want to be in this world. And the person I want to be is a person of love. Mother Teresa says the greatest paradox is that if you love until it hurts, there is no hurt. And someday I would like to experience that. And after you learn from your intention, the next thing you do is celebrate. Because when you celebrate the little things in life, life is one great big celebration. Dash Brett Dupree. I claim that quote, no one else has said it. So if you ever use it, remember, dash Brett Dupree. It was funny, I'm a Toastmaster. And Toastmasters is an organization where you work on your public speaking. And one thing that happens is you're evaluated. And I was practicing this speech in front of, well, a version of this speech in front of a Toastmasters group. And my evaluator said, well, I liked your speech, but one thing I would say is you spent a lot of your time getting to the meat of the story. You spent too much time on the getting into the relationship, but not enough time in the meat dealing with the breakup, which some of you might agree with, but I don't. Because who here has hired a coach or a mentor or even watched a thing on YouTube on how to do something? You learn from them from their successes. You don't watch a how to do something and the person fails 100 times and then does it right. You want their successes. And one thing in your life that you can learn from is your successes. When I hired Patrick Snow for my book writing coach, I didn't hire him because he failed 1,000 times and spent way too much money on getting his book out. No. I hired him because he had successes. And when I look back at my relationship, and I can notice the successes on how in this relationship I trusted more and loved more than any relationship. And it was more fun and more exciting than any relationship that I've ever had. And the only times I even regret in our relationship was the times I kind of held back love or didn't trust her with something. And not to say that if I would have just loved and trusted that the relationship would have kept on going, for all I know, it would have ended sooner and not began. But the important part is I can learn from my success of loving more and trusting more. And that's the 3 steps of the joyous expansion system: intention, action, and celebration. Because life without intention is directionless. Intention without action is just a dream. And actions without celebration become a burden. And when you live this way, you become a more happy and more joyful person. Because you're actually working deliberately on yourself. Because the truth of the matter is, most of us, studies have shown this, has this happiness set point. And even extremes, such as winning the lottery, you generally end up going back down. Losing your legs, you generally go back up, and you're at the same spot. But as you're working on yourself deliberately, with intentions and actions and celebrations, you can rise your happy in a set point. Even just a week after the breakup, when I was watching The World's End, this comedy in the theater, pulling my eyes out, thinking, oh my God, this movie's so funny, and crying. I knew I was more joyful than any time before I was 26, because my lows are higher than my highs used to be. And I knew the fact that I was going to get over this. I knew the fact that I'm going to learn from this. I knew the fact that I'm going to use this pain to make me better, not bitter. And I knew that either we'll get back together and our relationship will be better, or we'll break up and our relationship, my next relationship, will be even better. And this is the process that I use for all my clients when I write my blogs, when I do my podcast, is to help them increase their joy, to raise their happiness set point, so they get to where they want with more love and more joy in their lives, so they can learn what's important to them, so they can live their genius in their life. And the beauty of this is the fact that one thing I noticed is that people are kind of like bells. You vibrate one, and the other one starts vibrating as well. Because the more happy and more joy you live in your life, the more happy and joy the people in your life can raise. And as the happiness and joy in their life raises, it raises the life of everyone, thus expanding a joyous expansion across the globe. And that is my dream. There I was, at my 30th birthday party, surrounded by friends and family. When I was 13 and I saw my dad's 30th birthday party, for the people who suck at math, that's 17 years. My goal in life became, I want to have an awesome 30th birthday party as well. And before I was 26, there's no chance that would happen. But do this work, I'm here at my 30th birthday party, surrounded by friends and family, something I used to worry about. I used to be like George and Seinfeld, two worlds colliding. Didn't matter. And I have this awesome, amazing memory that I will cherish for the rest of my life. Go out and make awesome memories in your lives as well. Because I thank you for being here. Because this is now going to be an amazing, awesome, cherished memory in my life. As I've reached a point in my life where I've reached the dream of writing a book and getting it out there and speaking in front of a wonderful group of audience. So I thank you. And I challenge you to just put one thing you've learned today in your life. Because you will improve your life, and you will improve the lives of everyone around you. If I had an MC, they would ask me a bunch of questions and we do a question and answer thing. But I don't have an MC, so I'm just going to say a bunch of things. Don't worry, this is quick. I want to thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. This means a lot to me, sharing my dream of being a public speaker and book writer and coach. And just, this is everything I want in life. So I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here and laughing. I also want to thank my sponsor, Connie Brandon. If you're into NLP or you want another way to change your life and be better, there's some information over there for her on the table over there. She's an amazing hypnotherapist / NLP. She's learned from the master Richard Bandler. Also, St. Patrick's Day, Mother's Day. Is Mother's Day coming up or did it pass? Oh yeah, okay. Mother's Day, Father's Day. St. Patrick's Day is coming up. People have birthdays. So if you want to buy another book, to give them that a gift. I'm running a special. You buy 3 books, you get 1 free. And if you already bought 1, then it's 2 books. If you bought 2, then it's only 1 free. And I also have evaluation forms at the back that it would really help me if you're willing to fill those out so I can get some feedback on my speech today. So I thank you all, and thank you for being here.